Welcome to Portugal, where BMW has invited us to drive this. It may look like a 3 Series coupe, but it's not. It's the 4 Series, which of course means it's one better. Now, it's still based on a 3 Series, so you get the same engine and transmission options and a very similar looking interior, but they've changed the exterior by widening it and lowering it quite a bit. Now, we can debate the merits of the name change, and we will, but first, let's find out how it drives. Welcome to Portugal, in a city called, we think, Cascais. This is the 435i, which, like the 335i, has a single turbo straight 6, makes a little bit above 300 horsepower. We have an 8-speed automatic, setting the power to the rear wheels, of course. We have an open differential, and we have run flats. I don't know if enough good things have been said about this powertrain combination, this engine and this transmission. This single turbo 6-cylinder that's been in the 335 for a while now is a wonderful engine. And the 8-speed automatic we have here is very nice too. Very fast shifts, gives you very good control of the engine. You have a lot of power everywhere, and you never really get the sensation of turbo lag. It just feels like as soon as you get into the throttle, you have pretty much all the torque you could want. Yep, 4 Series still has it. There's good control through the steering, good clarity through the inputs and the responses they provide you. There's actually more mechanical connections between the subframe and the rest of the car to improve the steering feel. They've actually recalibrated too quite a bit. Of course, the steering changes between the different modes, Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus, and I prefer the steering the most in Sport Plus. The downside of that is when you put it in Sport Plus, then you have the super sharp throttle, and because we have adjustable dampers on this car, you have the stiff ride. I'm not a fan of those things when I'm just cruising, but I do like the steering. I wish there was a way to custom tailor that mode in the comfort setting. According to BMW, there are some changes to this car that they've made to try to differentiate it more from the 3 Series. For example, the gap between comfort and sport settings is bigger in this car than it is in the 3 Series. They want this car to be sportier and more aggressive. It does feel slightly lower and slightly wider. There is definitely a sense of width as you push this thing along a road, and it looks pretty cool because of it, especially from the rear 3/4. Those fender flares look very, very big. This car is fortunately lighter than the outgoing 3 Series coupe, and it's about the same weight as the comparable 3 Series sedan. Ahead of the front wheels is the air curtain system we first saw on the 1M, and that's attempting to draw air over the wheels in a way that also reduces drag. The result is a shape and a car that has a coefficient of drag of 0.28. It's pretty low. So now the interior. It looks pretty much like a 3 Series, and that's kind of disappointing. Not because I don't like the 3 Series interior, I do, and it works really well. It's very ergonomic and easy to use. But if you're going to change the personality of the car and change the name because you've changed the personality of the car, you should probably change the interior too, I think. How do I feel about the styling? I like it in parts, but I don't like it in other parts. So the fascia, the lower front end, kind of looks weird with the air intakes pushed out to the very edge and the black trim around this side. We're in the sport trim, of course, and it has black moldings and whatnot all around the car. That gives it a little bit of an edge. I think the best angle of this car is definitely the rear 3/4. That way you see the width, you see the tail lights. There's a part of it that feels kind of generic to me, but then there's a part that also looks very 3 Series coupe, or 4 Series coupe. But now let's get to the more philosophical side of the question, and that is, why the 4 Series? Why not just keep it a 3 Series coupe? And I'll give you BMW's explanation, or at least my understanding of BMW's explanation. That is, the 3 Series, while it has a lot of brand equity associated with it, it now has a lot of models associated with it too. There's the 3 Series, there's the sedan, there's a 3 Series wagon, there will be the 3 Series Grand Touring or GT. For some reason, BMW thinks that having a coupe might be too many variants under the 3 Series tent post, which, okay, that's fine. And if I don't sound convinced, it's because I'm not. I think you could keep the 3 Series coupe name and it would be fine. I think people would understand that, and you have a lot of brand equity associated with that. But then again, a name's a name, and as weird as saying M4 or 435 may be, I think you can get over it pretty quickly. While these roads in Portugal are very, very scenic, they are also highly trafficked. So later we're going to have to go to a racetrack and see how this thing performs at its limit. So now we take the first few laps on Estoril in the 435i Coupe. This definitely isn't a car you would take to a racetrack, but this should give us the opportunity to experience this car at its limit. This turbo 6-cylinder remains a very strong engine, broad power band, and it seems to pull to redline a little bit more strongly than I remember it doing in previous 335s. There is a fair amount of understeer, especially if you go into a corner a little bit faster than the car wants you to. We're in Sport Plus mode with traction stability control off, and there is a lot of traction. On throttle corner exit, you can ask a lot from these rear tires, and they don't seem to want to spin or push. The open diff will let one wheel go if you get too aggressive with it. That might be what's adding to the stability. The more I drive this 8-speed, the more I like it. It shifts very fast, very responsive. Now we're getting just the slightest amount of oversteer. I'm really impressed by the amount of forward traction this car has. The confidence it gives you on corner exit is pretty massive. It's fairly easy to reach this car's potential. Hear those front tires howl, woo! BMW is pretty proud of the fact that this has the lowest center of gravity of its lineup. They've also made quite a few changes in terms of size, especially the rear track being so wide. But versus the 3 Series, you'd probably have to drive the two back to back to notice the difference. So now we begin our cool down lap. Let's talk about what we've learned about the 4 Series on the track at the limit. It isn't the most exciting car at the limit, but it is composed and it doesn't feel limiting. For a luxury coupe though, for a car that, let's face it, will seldom see a racetrack, actually arrive at a racetrack, it is very well sorted. It feels nicely weighted in this Sport Plus mode. I feel like I have a lot of control through it. It communicates clearly when it starts understeering. You know that for certain. There's no guesswork involved. The powertrain is very, very nice. It feels very flexible. Gear changes happen very quickly, seemingly at the level of a twin clutch transmission. Downshifts are very accurate, very responsive, very quick. The torque from this turbo straight 6 is very nice. The power seems to last throughout the rev band. Braking power felt fine, felt basically like what you would expect from this type of car. But for a luxury-oriented coupe that has sporting pretensions, it seems to be just right.
Controversial name change aside, the 4 Series isn't too surprising. It manages to deliver on the strengths of the 3 Series, offering refinement and the kind of speed that makes for a gratifying experience around town, while it allows BMW to make the car appear more special to its buyers. It also opens the door to new variants as well. A 4-door Grand Coupe is certainly in the future. And yet saying M4 does and will sound weird for some time, though it makes you wonder, what's in a name anyway?